It is the coming out party of Casey Thompson in San Antonio. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Great to have you on just past midnight Eastern time as we work our way toward 2021. Texas with a commanding lead over Colorado, 41-16. They just tacked on another touchdown. Despite the lopsided score, I've enjoyed watching this game. And most of all, because of Casey Thompson coming in for the unfortunately injured Sam Ehlinger, which is a whole new storyline for the Texas football program for Ehlinger and for his NFL draft prospects, because Sam Ehlinger came into this game tied for the Big 12 lead in touchdown passes with 25. He threw one in this game. He is a borderline something in the mid-range of an NFL draft pick as a quarterback. He has his limitations. He loves the University of Texas, grew up wanting to play for Texas, has fulfilled his dreams. I'm sure he would love to come back to play for a championship, but maybe you opt for the money and go to the NFL. He's completed 4 seasons, 4 years of eligibility at Texas, but we know the 2020 rule in play that seniors are eligible to come back. So does Sam Ehlinger come back? Well, there is now a different set of circumstances for Sam Ehlinger to consider now that he has injured his right shoulder in this game. We don't know the severity at this point, but it was severe enough for them to put it in a sling and for him to leave the field, get his arm placed in a sling, come back to the field, and then watch Casey Thompson just light it up. If you've not been watching this Texas-Colorado game, look at the highlights of Casey Thompson in relief of Sam Ehlinger. Even if Sam Ehlinger comes back, if this is any indication of the way Casey Thompson can play, then we might have a quarterback battle in Austin. Appreciate everybody being on the line. We'll jump into the live chat. David Knight right out of the gate. Good to see you. Good evening. We've got the pool to ourselves. Oh, how I wish there was that kind of weather outside here in Connecticut. But we're looking at about 25 degrees right now. Oh, man. I was having a conversation with a wink friend today. And we were talking about other places to be this time of year. Let's get to it with Texas up 41-16. Of course, Miami fell to Oklahoma State. The Cowboys won that one 37-34, a good game. I heard it referred to as an instant classic on the network tonight. I wouldn't go that far. Good to see you, David. NCIS Fanatic 21, great. Another off season of hearing Texas is back. Yeah, Texas is back because they beat Colorado. They were back last year after winning another Alamo Bowl. Texas is the king of the Alamo Bowl in recent years. They played one against Oregon. That was in Mac Brown's final game at Texas, and now back-to-back Alamo Bowl championships. Tom Herman can have that put on his gravestone, I guess. Elias, good evening and God bless. Mark, thank you. I received that. Thank you so much for that blessing. It's very kind of you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Elias also says Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you and your family. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. We had a blessed Christmas. We are blessed to be here, to be alive, to be safe, to be happy, to be whole, to be healthy. There are always adversities and challenges in life, but we're in a good place, and my 2 children are as well. Elias, thank you so much for that. David commenting on Sam Ehlinger. I hit that off the top, so anybody who's just joining us right now, go back and watch the beginning. We just started. I know we're only 5 minutes into it, but I gave you my rundown on Sam Ehlinger, considering his shoulder injury tonight and his marginal status as an NFL draft prospect. Elias, by the way, Miami needs to get rid of number 6 and number 8 on offense. That would be, of course, Mark Pope and D. Wiggins. If you like your wide receivers to catch the ball, if that's a prerequisite, if you're really picky about wide receiver play and actually like them to be able to hang on to most of those passes that come their way, maybe if they're playing defensive back, they can knock some of those to the ground, and that's okay. But, yeah, playing on the offensive side of the ball, the one that snaps the ball to the guy that throws it, you got to catch those when they throw them your way. If you're the other guy guarding the guy trying to catch the ball, you can knock those down. I know it doesn't seem fair, does it? When you're playing that wide receiver position, you got to catch the ball. If you're playing that defensive back position, we just ask that you knock the ball down. Oh. Absolutely, David. Absolutely. La Potencia. Good to see you, Mets fan. Looks like Robinson Cano. Happy New Year. Early. Roberto, Texas is back with another bowl win. Yes, Tom Herman will now be 4-0 in bowl games. Not necessarily the kind of bowl games that a Texas fan, I think, would want to win, except for the Sugar Bowl a couple of years ago. So we've got a Texas Bowl win by Texas against Missouri in Tom Herman's initial season. Then, of course, the Sugar Bowl win over Georgia. Got Steve Helwick on the line. Good to hear from you. Steve, yes, it's good to see you. And yes, Bijan Robinson has been phenomenal in this game. Phenomenal. Steve, you can let me know if you'd like to drop into the chat here, and beyond the chat, if you'd like to join me for a conversation. I'm always looking for a take on Texas football. But I've watched every play of this game, been mighty impressed with Casey Thompson. You may have missed that off the top, Steve, but I talked about Sam Ehlinger's situation coming into the game, then Sam Ehlinger's more complicated decision to make, considering what possibly could be a serious shoulder injury. And now Casey Thompson, man, the throws that he made down the middle on the post routes, got something on my sleeve, on the post routes, those were impressive. But the one he made in the pocket where he sidestepped the defender, that was impressive footwork. And that caught everybody's eye, at least in the broadcast booth. But what caught the angle that he threw, he made an elite NFL throw on that one throw. I don't know if he can do that on a regular basis, but if you can make the throw, if you can show that you can make that throw, then you have the ability, certainly, to make the throw. That was impressive. Yes, Miami just 1-10 in its last 11 bowl games with the bowl win against West Virginia a few years ago under Mark Richt, his first year. Yes, DB Shashi. When will the calls start coming in? DB, on a regular basis, is asking me, when is the next call-in show? I love the call-in shows. Want to hear the call-in. Hey, this is the favorite thing that I do. The favorite thing that I do is come on here and take your calls and talk college football with you directly. I love posting the videos, of course. I love talking to our contributors like Steve Helwick with SB Nation, of course. But more than anything, I love taking the phone calls from you. So if you're unfamiliar with the number, I should have posted that earlier. Before I do that, actually, I will remind everyone. I know that Christmas is over. I know that you've done all your shopping, but there are returns, and there are those people out there that are thrifty and love to shop after Christmas and get those deals. If you go on Amazon, please use the link in the description section of any of the videos. Go to any video, and you'll see right near the top of the description section under the video where you can grab the Amazon link. Put that Amazon link somewhere where you'll remember it, and you can shop using that Amazon link, and you help us build the channel. Thank you. Now we'll get the number up there. 860-325-3687. And Steve, we don't need to put you to work, but if you so choose, you can give us a call as well. We do have a Texas channel, folks. Any Longhorn fans out there, we've got a Texas channel, and much of that content features our guy Steve Helwick from SB Nation. We have exceeded about 1,500 subscribers over there. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, who's on the line.
Oh, hello, it's me again, Roberto.
Hey, Roberto, how are you?
Good. Yeah. I don't know how I've been watching. I've been like watching Texas, like some games in Texas. I'm just confused. You know, throughout this whole season, like, why have they not started Bijan Robinson?
Why aren't they better?
No, why have they not started Bijan Robinson the whole season?
Well, I know that he got hurt early in the season, so you could probably look up this play on YouTube. He hurdled a UTEP defender in the first game of the season and hurt his back. He was like, if you look up this play, he was flipped basically on his head, and that really hurt him for a few weeks. That was for a few weeks, and so they've kind of worked him in since then.
Like a sore back or something, because when he got that hit, he came up fine.
Pardon me?
Like, he got up fine. Like, when he got hit, like, landed on his back, he got up just fine. Fine. What was, which game was it?
It was the UTEP game, the very first game of the season.
Oh, okay. And then I was thinking it was another game.
Yeah, this was like the first game of the season. Yeah, so he didn't get hardly any carries right after that. And he's a true freshman.
Oh, yeah.
So Texas is running Colorado out of the building. They just scored another touchdown. I figured this was an easy prediction. But anyway, what's on your mind, Roberto?
I mean, like, as a Buckeye fan, Bijan Robinson has been, like, on our target. And, like, we had, like, 3 5-star running backs, like, interested in us, and we didn't get neither of them. And I was, in my mind, like, if he's not going to Ohio State, he better go to Texas and hope Texas makes him a star, because he would probably make a huge difference. And I'm just, like, confused as to why not. Had they not done that throughout the season? And then when I know you told me about the injury, I didn't know that he was majorly hurt. And I just, my YouTube TV, I just saw the big play. Or to throw.
This kid can throw.
Yeah, the touchdown. It's just, I'm way behind.
Yeah, I didn't actually see it the first time, so I'm watching the replay now. Yeah, he hit him right in stride.
Well, so he was injured, and he was just, just to sum it up, he was injured and didn't get his rhythm back.
If you see the highlights of the UTEP game, you could probably Google this and you'll find it easily, because it was a highlight play because of just the freakish occurrence. He hurdled a defender, he was flipped up in the air, and he landed like directly on his head. And he injured he obviously didn't injure it severely because he's playing a few months later, but they were very cautious with him for a few weeks.
And limited. That's why he's been like getting limited carries. Like one drive he can go off, and the next drive he's not much in the game. Why? Because of the injury.
Well, I don't know.
Trying to like keep him healthy.
Well, I don't know specifically what moves they're making. I'm just saying that they limited it. I think he missed one complete game, and then they limited him after that.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So that's just what I wanted to know. I hope he has a great season next year. All right, that's all for me.
Okay, Roberto. Thanks for the call, man.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Elias, we're going to see if Manny has what it takes to be a top head coach in Power 5, even if playing guys based off seniority. And he's got to tell his buddy Blake Baker to take a hike. Yeah, we better get to 10 likes there, D-Bay. Okay. DB, good that you're keeping track of the likes. Got Dominic into hockey. Great. Let's talk some hockey. And there we go. All right. Texas, Colorado, 48-23. So, yeah, I outlined the situation concerning Sam Ehlinger. Would he come back to Texas versus is he going to go to the NFL as a fairly marginal prospect? I don't know what the draft nicks have to say, the Todd McShays and Mel Kipers of the world, but I think Sam Ehlinger's in that 4th or 5th round range. And now he's got a bum shoulder that could be severely injured. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, what's happening? It's Dave. How you doing?
Hey, Dave.
I'm going to just make this a brief question.
Okay.
And you can, always say, I throw it out there and I'll let you take it after that. But do you think it's possible? Because, one of the first times I've ever met with you or talked with you was about the targeting issue, right? That it's such a, I don't know if flimsy is the correct word to describe it. Do you think it's possible to have a targeting that is penalty that's done with malice and also targeting that's just a bad angle on a hit? Do you think they could ever get to that, or is that too subjective for referees to make? Because the thing about that is, they always review it, so you could potentially have those guys reviewing it after they made the initial call, and then they can determine, hey, yeah, this looks like a legitimate targeting hit done with malice versus he went to make the tackle, the offensive guy carrying the ball ducked his head, and so you end up like with that helmet-to-helmet contact. So what do you think?
Well, I think for all of us who have watched football for a long, long time, we have always been able to somewhat accurately tell how malicious a particular hit is. Not even talking about targeting, talking about hits out of bounds, talking about body slams, talking about all those things. And now we have the advantage of replay. I always hate to get into the hearts and minds of people to try to determine incentive, but I like where you're headed, and I've had the same thought, but I haven't determined nor heard anyone else be able to, in a sensible way, define or make a differentiation that can be seen by the same eyes, by eyes in different locations, because the judgment of such a thing is going to have to be consistent. That's the problem.
It's tough. It's tough. That live game speed is tough, and depending on the angle that the referee is throwing the flag, it could be difficult for him to interpret whether that would actually be a malicious hit or if it was just, hey, they both ducked, they both hit, and or the guy had already committed to the tackle. And even sometimes I think the guys have their helmets up with their face mask, but when the collision happens, it ends up appearing to be that it looks like it's targeting, but I really don't think it is, and that's where the great thing with the replay comes in. Like you said a few years ago, that wasn't available, but it is available now. So I think because it does have a lot of detrimental outcomes to momentum and, the outcomes of the game.
While I don't think it's a simple matter, I think it should be explored. I think people that understand the game and how it's played should get together and at least start to explore, okay, let's and they can review targeting play after targeting play after targeting play and look at these, both the ones that were called and reviewed and confirmed and the ones that weren't, and start to determine, are we starting to see a pattern? It's just like analyzing anything. Can we start to recognize a pattern of what we would consider to be intentional or egregious versus ones that are accidental and just within the course and flow of the game? And how do we define that and determine it so it can be easily reviewed and determined by just not one person who has a definitive look at it, but crews all over the nation are going to be able to come up with the same determination so we are consistent. I think it's going to take a long time and a lot of discussion and research, but it's based on what we're seeing of these players getting thrown out of games. It's worth pursuing.
Sure. I think the call is easy. The diagnosis after the call is difficult. So, but what you said, like about the players getting thrown out for a respective half and then possibly half of another game, that's pretty severe to me if the guy really didn't mean it. I just think that's kind of harsh.
Well, that in and of itself. So we have the issue with the targeting call itself, and then we have the issue of the penalty and the inconsistency of the penalty and the severity of the penalty. I'm glad that they at least allow these student athletes to stay on the field with their teammates and stay on the sideline and not force them to take that walk of shame to the locker room and not participate in the rest of the game, at least from a standpoint of communicating and being with their team. So at least they clarified and they upgraded that portion of it and eliminated that foolishness. But now they need to get to a next level where, think about the inconsistency of the penalty. So if you commit a targeting at the beginning of the second half of a game, then you're going to miss the rest of that half and the first half of the next game. You're going to miss a full game.
Yeah, and maybe that should be a 20-minute assessment.
Yeah, I don't know why the enforcement and the penalty is not consistent. Make it a certain number of plays or a quarter or something. But if you commit the same penalty on the last play of the game, then you're still just missing the first half of the next game. So the range of penalty ranges from a half of football to basically a full football game.
Yeah, and it really is. And I think, especially for somebody that just made a hit, where it's such a fast sport. And, if I go to tackle you, Mark, I don't know how you're going to react to me tackling you. And I've already committed, and, you can duck your head, you can sidestep me, you can do a number of things. But if it just happens to be that you duck down a little bit and I crack you, I didn't mean it. I'd already, went to tackle you. So that's the real shame in all that, is to penalize a player so much where he probably didn't, even like that Michael Mayer for Notre Dame, the tight end. He got a targeting penalty. I don't know if it was Nolan. Is it Turner?
Yes.
Is that his name, or Walker? Turner?
No, Turner.
I could tell. Yeah, I could tell he didn't mean any malice by that. It was just a bad angle. So he doesn't deserve to be thrown out for that half and the next half. That's really terrible. Or to me, it just was a bad angle for both of them. But I was like, man, I'm not a Clemson fan, but I don't wish that on that young man. So I don't know.
I'm with you, David.
Anyway, sir, I'm out of here, and we'll let somebody else get a shot.
Appreciate that. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Take care.
You too. Our guy, David Knight. Annoyed by targeting. I am too. It's impossible to play defense. I do want to protect these players as much as possible, but they are playing football. As somebody once famously said, it's not a contact sport. It's a collision sport. It's not basketball. That's a contact sport. That is a collision sport. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football.
Hello, Mark. It's Ben.
Hey, Ben. How are you?
Good, good. So I'm sitting here right now watching this bowl game with Texas and Colorado.
Sure.
And I want to ask you a question about Texas. So I want to know, how many times in the past decade have you heard Texas football is back? And then how many times has Texas football actually been back?
Okay. The second portion of that question I can answer readily, very easily, but I'll try to answer the first portion first. How many times have I heard that phrase? More than I can count. Hundreds of times. How many times has it been true? That one's an easy one to answer. It's easier. 0. That's how many times they've been back. 0.
Yeah, I was just sitting here watching this game, and I said, I know, because I got a couple of Texas fans, friends or Texas fans, and I know I'm going to hear Texas football is back the whole entire rest of the year, leading up to the season 2020, and then the same thing's going to happen that always happens. Texas football isn't back. They're not a mediocre team. They're a good team, but Texas football isn't back. It's going to be back one day, maybe. We'll see, possibly. But this is a start. I like the way that kid is throwing the football that they got in, or that they had in before they took him out. He's throwing good passes. Bijan, he's doing good. I think he's going to be a really good running back for him in the future. But Texas football, in my opinion, that is just so overused that I don't know if I can trust that Texas football is back anymore.
Well, a couple of years ago, they did go to the Big 12 championship game, and then they won the Sugar Bowl. And that's when they most famously said that they were back. And I thought maybe, based on their recruiting classes, that they would show us the next season that they are back. But they proceeded to go 8-5.
So, yeah, that, and then usually I do have a bit of a question about Florida. I always have a question about Florida for you. So now the betting odds have shifted. The odds have shifted in Oklahoma's favor after, of course, Florida's top 4 receivers being out. Jacob Copeland with coronavirus, and then Trayvon Grimes, Kadarius Toney, and Kyle Pitts opting out. So do you think that guys like Keon Zipper, Kimori Gamble, and just some other guys like C.J. Henderson's little brother, Xavier, do you think they're going to step up into a big role in this game? And do you think that the game pans out the same way the bettors in Vegas say?
Well, I think that when you are recruited and signed to play at a place like the University of Florida, and you were highly regarded coming out of high school, and you then seize the opportunity that you have in a situation like this. So I think that when you talk about Kyle Pitts, as we did the other night, you're talking about a guy who has separated himself as an elite player at his position versus the other guys that you're talking about in Grimes and Toney. They're very good players, but they are not elite. They're not special. They're very good, but it's all going to come down. The guys that are going to replace them in the lineup are no less as fast, as quick. Are they going to be as productive? Well, we're missing reps between them and Kyle Trask. The chemistry and the timing that has been built up throughout this entire season, and going back to, of course, from the time Felipe Franks went down and Kyle Trask took over, that's going to be lost. And it's difficult to replicate that and replace that in such a short period of time. So that could be the difficulty more so than a talent situation.
Yeah, so I mean, personally, I like Xavier Henderson a lot. He's CJ Henderson's little brother. He's shown a lot of glimpses of really good stuff this season from what I've seen. I think Jacob Copeland's coming back next year, but obviously Jacob Copeland, Kadarius Toney, Trayvon Grimes, Kyle Pitts, they're all out, which is Florida's top 4 receivers and receiving yards and touchdowns, I believe, too, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I just want to ask you the question on Texas. The question about what do you think will happen with all those guys being out and how the impact will be on the team. And so thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Ben. Appreciate the call. Have a good night.
Yeah, have a good night. Bye.
Press 1 to start the call or 2 to decline.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Bart. I was just listening to your last caller. Did he just call a college football player a kid?
You know what? I was going to follow up on that, and then I thought I'll just let him go because I was going to say, Ben, you know that, how old does somebody have to be for you to be calling them a kid? I thought that was quite amusing myself.
Well, I just want to say, Mark, in a few years, I think you're going to have some competition out there. So
Well, it might be less than a few years.
Hey, I just have to say, is Texas back the most overused phrase in the history of college football?
It's becoming that. Yes, I've heard it way too many times.
Yeah, I mean, they beat Colorado, but I mean, pump the brakes. I mean, please.
Are we hearing this from somebody right now?
No. I was just going to say, I wonder if it's going to be said. I would think it wouldn't be said this time. I know it was used 2 years ago after the Georgia win. That's when it was really out there in the public domain. So that's when it seemed to become big.
Which I understand their fans getting hopeful and optimistic following that game, but to declare that they were back was certainly presumptuous, as it turned out.
I got to ask you, Mark, did I hear right? Could Ehlinger have another year of eligibility for them?
Well, everyone does. That was the point.
Oh, because of the COVID.
Yeah, he does
Let me
not.
ask you.
Or he
Oh,
would.
he does not?
I'm sorry. He would not. But everyone does.
Okay. So there's probably a good chance he's not back next year.
Sure.
I would want. Yeah. Well, you think he's an NFL quarterback, Mark?
Not really.
Okay. Yeah. I was looking at him. I've watched him play because it seems like he's been there for forever. And I keep on trying to judge because, the balance between being a college quarterback and an NFL quarterback. Because nowadays there's a lot of guys that I never thought would make it in the NFL have transitioned pretty well to the NFL. I mean, I kind of had my doubts about Kyler Murray. He's done a little bit better than I thought in the NFL. Mm-hmm. And like we were talking about the other day, I had my doubts about Justin Herbert, and he's lighting it up this year. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess I could see the guy as an NFL quarterback, but I couldn't see him as a starting NFL quarterback.
Okay. That was going to be my next question, because when you say, is he an NFL quarterback, was A.J. McCarron or Aaron Murray or Greg McElroy NFL quarterbacks? Well, technically, yes. They were on rosters. But during their senior seasons, had somebody said, are they NFL quarterbacks? And I would have said no. I take that question as, are they starting quarterbacks in the NFL that are going to play or battle for a starting position at least? Yeah, Sam Ehlinger can hang around in the NFL. I'm not going to be surprised if we see Sam Ehlinger with a 6-year NFL career where he has 3 starts and he's a third stringer most of the time during his 6 years.
Right. To me, he's I guess, would you say he's a better version of Trace McSorley? Like a really good college quarterback who's probably just going to be like a backup or journeyman at best, right?
Well, it's great that you bring up Trace McSorley, because if somebody would have asked me, and I'm sure somebody did at some point, if Trace McSorley was an NFL quarterback, I would have said no. But he's an NFL quarterback right now. But I still, technically, he's an NFL quarterback. He's Lamar Jackson's backup, or he may be the backup to the backup. I don't know. Anyway, he's played a little bit this year when Lamar Jackson was hurt. So technically, he's an NFL quarterback, but I don't think he's going to be a starting NFL quarterback. But Ehlinger, for you to compare Ehlinger and McSorley, I think is pretty dead on. Ehlinger is thicker and stronger. He's not just a guy that's fleet of foot like McSorley. He might be a little bit more durable. Well, he gets hurt all the time. If he knew how to take care of himself. He's a thicker guy than McSorley. But I don't know that I can distinguish those two guys. I think he has a better arm than McSorley, but not much better.
Right. I think it might be slightly better than McSorley. I mean, McSorley could throw the deep ball, fairly well. But if you watch them both, I would think Ehlinger might be a little bit stronger. Hey, one other thing, by the way, I have to say this about Texas. I notice they have a lot of former Ohio State assistants. I see Chris Ash. They got Mike Yursich.
Yep.
He seems to like hiring former Buckeye assistants down there. And I will say this, and it's been talked about in the chat, watch out for Bijan Robinson in the future. I wish the Buckeyes could have gotten him in recruiting. That was a close call there. He could be very good for them in the future. He's going to be real good. He could be a very good back.
Sure, he's had a great night tonight. And he, of course, was a 5-star. And, also consider that the two guys that you mentioned coached with Tom Herman. So he was on the same staff with those guys.
That's right. That's true.
So I would think since they worked together. Yeah.
Right. Hey, last thing, Mark, before I let you go, I may get other callers. What do you think about Urban Meyer to the pros? What do you think about the rumors? And bottom line, what does Mark Rogers think Urban Meyer could be as a pro football head coach?
Okay.
Floor is yours. What do you think, Mark?
I think that Urban Meyer is one of the type people that can excel at whatever he puts his mind to. I think that his strengths and philosophies in terms of how he deals with people and instructs coaches and builds a culture and an organization translates. Until he left Ohio State and the rumor started first with the Dallas Cowboys, I never really considered him a NFL coach. I just, he didn't strike me as a guy that would want to go through that grind. And now that he's got health issues or has, I would especially not think that he would want to go through that grind, because I just think it's more difficult in certain ways. At least you don't have to keep track of 100 kids and make sure they're going to class and staying out of trouble for the most part. I don't know. It would be difficult for me to picture him on an NFL sideline, but it's becoming more common than it used to. When did we ever see as much overlap between college coaching and NFL coaching years ago? It just didn't seem as though it happened a lot,
Right.
as much as it does now.
Because college pros are taking so much of the college concepts that they used to never take. Yeah, because the pro was never going to take the wishbone or the option or anything like that. But now you really can't tell the differences with the offensive game plans and what they're running. So I don't know. I just thought it would be interesting. I wanted to hear your opinion on it. So hey, I know you got other callers, Mark. You have a good night now.
Thanks, David.
Take care.
I will say, to continue that same thought process, that when David and I started watching college football, it went the other way around, where the college game mirrored the pro game in terms of the passing offense coming to the college game after it came first and was developed by the likes of Hank Stram and Bill Walsh and Paul Brown in the NFL and Tom Landry in the NFL. And that trickled down to college football. And the college game, the passing game that exploded in the 80s at Miami and Maryland and BYU and places like that, that mirrored the pro game. But the college game as the pro game was pretty much the same game from the late 70s up until the last 5 to 10 years. And the collegiate game kept being innovated, that the pro game then started to mirror the offensive concepts that were being displayed in college. Again, 35 to 40 years ago was the exact opposite. The college game was a copycat of the pro game. Now it's the other way around. Had another thought about Urban Meyer that I'm not coming up with now. Shoot.
Press 1 to start the call or 2 to... The call will start at the beep.
I guess I'll put it this way. If Cliff Kingsbury can be a fairly successful head coach in the NFL, I would think Urban Meyer could. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's Dominic.
Hey, Dominic. How are you?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm good. What's going on tonight?
Nothing much. I'm just chilling, just watching the Texas Colorado game, and man, Texas has dominated pretty much the whole game.
Pretty much.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, listen. The Longhorns quarterback definitely been really, really good this game against Colorado.
You're talking about the one that took over for Sam Ehlinger.
Yes.
Yeah, he's been impressive. Absolutely.
Definitely. But Texas overall has been really, really good throughout this season. Well, it's a shame they couldn't make the playoffs, but overall, they've done pretty good.
So you're telling us that Texas, it's a shame that they didn't make the playoffs, but overall they've done pretty well.
Yeah, that's basically what I'm saying. I mean, I know one of your other callers named Ben. I mean, I know he's trying to be like you, but so far for me, not so well. I mean, I've got to get better at the call-in shows. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I always appreciate the call, Dominic.
No problem.
Have a good night.
You too, Mark.
All right, our friend Dominic calling in, giving Texas some type of passing grade, I guess, for this year. Ohio State Dynasty. Dude, you put the tree up late. Now it's customary to take it down by the first. Oh, is this a recent current trend that we've got to take it down by the first? I guarantee you, Ohio State Dynasty, that tree is not coming down by the first. I'm going to be sitting here most of the time watching football games through the first and talking to you. After the first, actually after the second, which will be Saturday, Tom Herman getting another Alamo Bowl bath. Then it'll come down. It's only been up since December 21st, 22nd, something like that. Dalton, Texas football will never be back until they can keep their big-time recruits stay in Texas, which Right now, they're all going to Ohio State, Bama, among others. Yeah, they're starting to lose the top in-state prospects. I still think that their classes are good enough to be producing better records than 7-3, and 8-5, and 10-4, and 7-6 under Tom Herman. I don't know, as an AD or president, that I could go to Tom Herman and say, you must do this next year to keep your job. But I would give him a pretty clear idea of what the expectations are, which are win the Big 12 championship. And if you don't, then you had seriously contended for it. So let's say Oklahoma goes 11-1 and Texas goes 11-1, and Texas loses a Big 12 championship game to Oklahoma to go 11-2 and to a nice bowl game. Well, I'm not going to fire Tom Herman over that. So he didn't win the Big 12, but he was right there. So I wouldn't put a specific win total or championship expectation to keep or dismiss Tom Herman next year, but I would give him a very clear expectation of the type level football that Texas would need to achieve next year for me to keep him. H-Man998, I was disappointed as well about the Arkansas TCU cancellation, which was tomorrow night's game. We would come on after the game tomorrow night. Not tomorrow night, the next night. New Year's Eve night. So we no longer have a late night game on New Year's Eve. But yeah, I was looking forward to it. Cheryl's in the chat. Shanktopotamus, what is my position in college football bowl game opt-outs? I've been asked this a number of times. I'll take this call and then I will answer your question there, Shanktopotamus.
Press 1 to start the call or 2 to... The call will start at 3.
MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's McD Sports 4. How you doing?
I'm good, McD. What's up?
I'm doing pretty good. I mean, about this Texas-Colorado game, about Texas bringing Colorado off the field in the Alamo Bowl, who cares? I mean, let's be honest. Who cares? Texas is a team that basically announced that they have no confidence in Tom Herman. He's a dead man walking. He's only coming back this upcoming season in 2021 because Urban Meyer didn't want the job, which, by the way, Urban Meyer will not be an NFL head coach. He will be a big new kickoff next year in the studio. I mean, who cares that Texas won the Alamo Bowl? I mean, it doesn't mean nothing. That's a program, in my opinion, that should be going for national championships every year. They've been a near disappointment. I mean, Maryland would have beat them for the third time in a row if they were in this Alamo Bowl, but we decided to opt out of a bowl game because the teams were below 500 records. I know Texas didn't have a below 500 record, but at least Maryland has more and decided to opt out of a bowl game because they have a low 500 record. So,
McD, I understand that since Maryland beat Texas 2 consecutive years, which I took a lot of joy in as well, not that I hate Texas or anything, I just thought it was amusing, that you will, unless the two programs run into each other again, you will forever have that over them. But I'm not necessarily agreeing that Maryland would have beaten Texas in a bowl game this year.
I think we would.
Okay. We'll never know. It's possible. But I would certainly have put a few dollars on Texas.
Okay. We just had to disagree on that.
Sure.
But overall, I mean, Colorado, I mean, they're a lot better than what I thought this year. So give them credit.
record-wise. I know they had a big game against USC. I don't know. I forget, did that game even happen, or did that game not happen? I forget.
Which game were we talking about?
The USC Colorado game.
They did not.
Games have been canceled.
They did not play. Got canceled.
Yeah, because I remember seeing headlines for that game, and I saw Colorado 3-1, and not really paying attention at the record. Really, and I watched them a few times this year, but I mean, they were a lot better than what I thought this year. They were a lot better than what I thought this year. So give them credit, but yeah, I mean, it's basically a talent issue. That's why Texas beat them. But Mark, the reason why I'm calling you is actually a team that Colorado faces every year in Pac-12, and the Arizona Wildcats and their head coach hired. Did you see what they hired for head coach?
They hired Jed Fish.
Yeah. What? I mean, and I understand sometimes you find somebody that no one knows and it works out. But this guy has never been an offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator and has never really coached on the college level. And you're the University of Arizona that just messed up the whole thing with Khalil Tate, with Kevin Sumlin, who people thought was going to be a pretty good fit there at Arizona, but wasn't. If you're the University of Arizona, I don't know what you're doing, honestly. I really don't.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, Jed Fish was either a quarterback's coach. I think that was his main role at UCLA and Michigan. I'm going to have to look that up. I know he was at UCLA and Michigan on the offensive side of the ball.
Okay. I know he was never a coordinator, though. Which, I mean, I know, like, the new trend is hire the offensive guy, but if I was an Arizona fan, I was seriously questioning about the football program if they're taking it seriously. Especially after they ran out the building 70-7 against Penn State rival like that. I mean, I really question that hire a lot. I mean, I just saw it today. It might have been something that happened a few days ago. I just didn't see it. But I really question that hire down there in Arizona. I honestly don't know what they're thinking.
If I'm at Arizona, I'm going after a top flight group of 5 coach. I'm doing what, you can go through how many schools. Texas Tech comes up to mind in hiring Matt Wells from Utah State, who did a really good job there. And of course, Brian Harsin going from Boise State to Auburn. That would be the group of coaches that I'd be looking at. I'd be going around the country and thinking, now there are certain group of 5 coaches that, like Harsin, he probably would have turned down Arizona. He obviously could command the Auburn job. Luke Fickell's better than Arizona. He's being courted by places like Michigan State. But getting past the top 5 or 6 programs in the group of 5, I would start looking around to see, the Tulsa coach, the, places like that, the San Jose State coach, guys that have handled pretty large programs already. To your point, not a guy that's never ran anything.
Yeah, I mean, that's my point. I mean, at least run an offense, be the offensive coordinator or something, since he's an offensive guy. This guy's never been an offensive coordinator at any level. So because I never heard the name, so I looked him up. And when I saw his resume, I was like, if you're Arizona, especially, and the reason why I have this reaction is because you lost to your in-state rival 70-7. That's the main reason. I would, if I was an Arizona fan, I would seriously question that hire. 2 other quick things. What do you think of the Brett Bielema hire at Illinois?
Well, Brett Bielema grew up in the Big Ten. He was a player in the Big Ten and, of course, had his most success in the Big Ten as a head coach after he was an assistant coach in the Big Ten. I just think that that's a natural fit for him. The style of play, the recruiting footprint. He's a recognizable name. Illinois, of course, just had a recognizable name. It doesn't happen too often that you get a coach who is coached in the Super Bowl to be your head coach at the collegiate level, and that didn't prove to do much for them. But I would think that Brett Bielema is a really good hire at Illinois. I like it. He's now crediting going to the NFL with the Patriots and the Jets and learning quite a bit that has, complemented what he already held true to as a college coach, which is toughness and playing with a certain chip on your shoulder, but maybe tweaking that and becoming a little bit more modern in his mindset and approach. So we could see a new and improved Brett Bielema.
Yeah. My opinion on it is I think it's a good hire for Illinois, but I think he's the coach. I think he's one of the 2 final candidates in the coach for rating for the Iowa job where Kirk Ferentz retires. It's either going to be him or Luke Fickell. And I just feel like he's positioning himself for that, personally.
Well,
I think
he's getting back in the college game and getting to a Power 5 job and in the conference that he's accustomed to. I don't think he really needed, unlike most coaches, because of his success in the past. He's coached at Arkansas and, of course, won Big Ten championships at Wisconsin. I don't think he needed to position himself. I think he would be a coaching candidate at Iowa regardless.
I guess you're right on that. I mean, maybe he just want to get back in the Big Ten since he's been out of it so long, just to get like a footprint of it. But overall, I think it's a good hire for Illinois. Now, I think we're going to struggle some early, but I think overall it'll be a good hire. And the last thing, I saw your video about Mississippi State and Mike Leach.
Yeah.
It'll work out. It will work out. I'm not saying SEC championships, but what Dan Mullen was able to do at Mississippi State, it'll be like that. It'll work out. Just give him time.
Well, and I think to get back to Brett Bielema, he's in a division where there's no superpower.
Yeah.
So I think he has a chance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that's all I really have for you, Mark.
Okay, McD.
Thanks for my call, Good Turks.
Appreciate it.
Talk to you next time.
See ya.
See ya.
Our guy McD getting the job done, takes us around the country as he typically does. Stopped in at Arizona, Illinois, and Mississippi State. Brett Bielema at Illinois. Might as well take that job. Might as well take that job. They are either in the process of or have finished a new state-of-the-art football facility. They're in a good football playing state, not great by any stretch, but a good football playing state. And there's good football played in St. Louis, which is on the border. And then they can tap into the Midwest, into Nebraska and Iowa for some of that talent as well. So Illinois, when they've been good, they've also been able to tap into the DMV. It's been done before at Illinois. For those of you who are a bit younger and don't remember Illinois football between roughly 1980 and 95 was strong. Wasn't great, wasn't elite, but they certainly won Big Ten championships, a few of them. 1983 comes to mind. Big Ten championship, Rose Bowl appearance. They also tied for Big Ten championship in 1990. And they were regular postseason participants and usually in the middle part of the top 25. So it can be done at Illinois. That division, the Big Ten Western Division, I know Wisconsin's been the best program in the division for a long time, and Northwestern's, of course, won the division 2 of the last 3 years, and Iowa's been a constant contender, but none of those programs have a real advantage over the others, and none of them really have a big disadvantage. If anybody has a disadvantage in the Big Ten Western Division, it's Northwestern, but they've overcome that with maybe the best coach in the conference Hopefully you heard that, David Green Shield, the best coach in the conference, Pat Fitzgerald. Maybe I'll do some coaches rankings. We'll do that as soon as the season's over. Coaches rankings. Done those in the past. But there is really no, unlike any other division in college football. Yeah, I cannot find another division in college football like this. There is really no hierarchy in the Big Ten Western Division. And again, I'm not talking about results because Wisconsin's been the best and Northwestern's been there and Iowa's been in contention and Purdue's generally been down and Illinois has been the worst. And yes, but I'm talking about in terms of recruiting footprint and facilities and money and prestige and history. Besides Nebraska's history, there's no real advantage in the Big Ten Western Division. They are a 1 through 7 that over the next 10 to 15 years, if you gave me any order of how those teams are going to finish, I would not be surprised. Any one of those 7 can win that division. Any one of those 7 could emerge, and most likely none of them will emerge. They're all going to take turns or battle it out. But right now it's Wisconsin, and sorry, Northwestern fans, because you've actually won 2 of the last 3 divisions, but you're still chasing Wisconsin and Iowa. Those are the 3 teams. And then you've got some Purdue, Nebraska, Minnesota, whatever, Illinois at the bottom. You can't say that about any other division. Clemson rules the ACC Atlantic. Florida State should be there with them and have been in the past. Miami gets the best talent, and now North Carolina does in the ACC Coastal. And then you've got everybody else underneath, although Virginia Tech's been good in the past. The Big Ten Eastern Division, of course, Ohio State's through the ceiling, and Penn State and Wisconsin or Michigan are there, and Michigan State, and you've got your hierarchy everywhere. We can go through every division in college football. There's a hierarchy, except the Western Division of the Big Ten. A dog named Brutus. When was Texas perennial contenders for the national championship? It's been a long, long time. So when Mack Brown was there, he took over the job in 1998 and quickly lifted Texas off the deck. They had been down for about 5 years, and they won a Cotton Bowl in 1998. Ricky Williams a Heisman Trophy. And then by the year 2001, they started to challenge Oklahoma. And then from that year, 2001, in that range, winning a national championship in 05, playing for a national championship in 09. For those 8 or 9 years, I would consider Texas to be competing for national championships for those 8 or 9 years. That doesn't mean every year that they were playing for a national championship. That means they were in the mix and considered national championship contenders, and of course got to the game twice in those 9 years under Mack Brown. Since then, no, not even close. Prior to that, you'd have to go back to the early 80s. Texas had a big year in 1990. They won the Southwest Conference. They were in the top 5 or 6 in the nation, but they got obliterated. One of the biggest butt kickings you will ever see, just annihilations on New Year's Day in the Cotton Bowl against Miami. Final score 46-3. Texas, you may not know this, came that close to winning a national championship in 1983. That was the same day on New Year's Day 84 that Miami elevated from number 5 in the country to number 1 on the strength of the Orange Bowl upset over Nebraska on the failed 2-point play, 31-30. That afternoon, Georgia played Texas. Texas was 10-0-1. With Miami's later win that night against Nebraska, it gave everybody in the country that was competing for the national championship, meaning Miami, Nebraska, Texas, Georgia, Auburn, all one loss. Texas lost that game to Georgia 10-9. They muffed a punt with about 4 minutes left. They were up 9-3. They muffed a punt with about 4 minutes left. Georgia scored a touchdown and won the game 10-9. Texas came that close to winning a national championship in 1983. They finished 10-1-1. Otherwise, had they not muffed that punt, they most likely would have won the game, finished 11-0-1, and won the national championship in 83. But consistent contention for a national championship, I would consider Mac Brown's years from about 02-03 to 09. Murder Blaze, if Texas wants to compete with Oklahoma in the Big 12, Sam Ehlinger needs to move on. The performance that Casey Thompson put on tonight. And I'm not talking about a situation in which Texas receivers were just so much better than Colorado DBs, which they weren't actually. The Colorado 2 cornerbacks are pretty good. Or that the offensive line was just so good that the quarterback could just stand back there and hit wide open receivers. No. Casey Thompson was throwing lasers. He made an NFL throw. One of his throws was a top-of-the-line NFL throw. Yeah, Cheryl knows. Ohio State, Texas, 05-06. So tomorrow we have a Wisconsin-Wake Forest game in the Duke's Mayo Bowl at noon. I'm looking forward to that one. We've got Ohio State Buckeyes live here at 2 o'clock Eastern Time. Still have yet to decide whether I'm going to go live after the Duke's Mayo Bowl because we've got a mid-afternoon cancellation, I believe. Yeah, the game we were supposed to have in the afternoon was Iowa, Missouri, unfortunately gone. So we just have the noon game and the night game, Cotton Bowl game between Oklahoma and Florida. So we'll be back late night tomorrow night. So this is what we've got tomorrow. 2 o'clock Eastern Time live. Ohio State Buckeyes live, 2 o'clock Eastern Time. 6 o'clock live, Florida State. And then we'll be gone after the football games, the Cotton Bowl, tomorrow night. That should be about midnight again. We'll do that. I'm looking for, I thought I saw some questions, but I'm not coming up with them. I'm way behind. Sea Dog West, hey Mark, who do you think between Ohio State or Clemson, or do you think this is just going to be a really good game close? I think it's going to be a really good game, and I think I'm going to honor my folks at Patreon who contribute each month for me to deliver my predictions there. I will say that I took Oklahoma State -1.5 tonight, and I took Texas -7.5 tonight. Therefore, I was 2-0. So I need to honor those folks over on Patreon. Folks, join us on Patreon. Which reminds me, I don't know if I'm going to have a chance, but once we finally get to breathe a little bit after January 2nd, we've got football through the 2nd that I'll be on top of. And then after that, I'm going to have a couple days to breathe a little bit, maybe start to work on this business actually, and cut some videos for Patreon. I got to honor those folks on Patreon. We got 54 at Patreon. We would love that. Patreon page needs to be, we need to get to 100 in a month and maybe get to 500 in the next 6 months. And this time next year, we should be about 1,000 on Patreon. And I need to deliver there, which is an insider look at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. My picks, Steve Merrill, Pro Sports Info. And we've got exclusive watch parties and live streams over there per request. And so, again, you get my predictions there. And I will have to deliver my picks for tomorrow. course. So go to the description section of any of the videos and you will see the link to Patreon, or you can just go to Mark Rogers TV on Patreon. Just go to Patreon, search Mark Rogers TV, and it is just about 16 cents per day. A lot of love for Texas. I know there have been different coaches, Eric, at Colorado, but this is becoming a bit of a trend when Colorado is decent. So they got crushed tonight by Texas in the Alamo Bowl. And Texas is no elite team. And Carl Durrell's done a fabulous job at Colorado in his first season. So this is not a knock on Carl Durrell, meaning I've got some kind of expectation that he should have walked in the door and elevated Colorado through the roof. But this is now the third time in only 5 years that Colorado's had a decent season. One of those in which they went to the Pac-12 championship game against Washington. And then as soon as they play somebody that's got a pulse, somebody on the national level that has some talent, they get crushed. They lost the Pac-12 championship game that year like 38-8 to Washington. Then they proceeded to go to the Alamo Bowl and play Oklahoma State that year in 2016, and they got annihilated. They got killed, and then they get killed in this game. L5P, Denali, based on what I saw tonight, and it was only, I think, 10 pass attempts from Casey Thompson, there should be a quarterback competition in Texas if Sam Ehlinger comes back. Arkansas did not win a conference game for 3 years after Bielema. Okay. After Bielema. You throw an E in there, Blake. You got an E. There's another E in there. He's got one of those names, Bielema, that's difficult to know whether you spelled it right or not. I get it. Okay, didn't win a conference game after Bielema. Well, Brett Bielema's last year at Arkansas would have been 2017, correct? They did not win one in 18 and 19, correct? 2 years. 2 seasons, did not win a game under Chad Morris. And now they've got a little life. I wanted to see Arkansas play against TCU. Even though 3-7 should not get you into a bowl game, I wanted to see Arkansas play. I'm missing the bowl games. We're being just stripped of bowl games every day. They're easier to keep track of now. I can just sit down and watch one bowl game. They're not overlapping all over the place, but not that they overlapped much anyway, because what I always thought was stupid was, and I actually had this conversation with, I had a back and forth, I shouldn't call it a conversation, via email. I had this conversation with the president of ESPN. This was about at least 10 years ago. So I was annoyed that for the entire bowl season, from the very first day of bowl play on that Saturday, right around December 18th or 19th, that every bowl game is exclusive on television. You can watch every bowl game. You can watch the R&L Carriers New Orleans Bowl. You can watch the San Diego County Credit Union Poinsettia Bowl. You can watch at the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. You can watch all those games without worrying about whether it's going to overlap another game. They're all separate. They're all exclusive. You go through the entire bowl season like that. And then all of a sudden, I would get so annoyed because on New Year's Day, I'm having to select between 3 Big Ten SEC matchups at the same time. One's being played on ABC, one's on ESPN, one's on ESPN2. You've got the Gator Bowl, the Outback Bowl, and the Citrus Bowl all being played basically at the same time. The Outback might kick off at 11 a.m. It used to, up until a couple years ago. Then you would have the Citrus Bowl and the Gator Bowl kicking off at 11, and then 2 of them at 1. And I'm like, finally, we are seeing the best bowl games that we've seen in terms of matchups. We're seeing, like, you know, Michigan and Auburn and Penn State and Tennessee and whoever it is, good SEC teams, good Big Ten teams playing all at the same time. I can't watch all the freaking games at the same time. Why would you have UAB and Louisiana and Boise State and BYU and all these other games? You know, all these MAC games and all these games exclusive to where you can watch them in their entirety by themselves. And then all of a sudden we hit New Year's Day and I've got like 3 games involving top 15 teams in the country, and they're all being played at the same time. So I ripped off my little email to the president at ESPN. This is when I worked at ESPN, and we had quite the back and forth about my complaint, because I pointed out to him that if you're a college football fan, there are college football fans that want to see everything, like most of us. There are college football fans that on the other end of the spectrum just want to watch their team. I'm a Oklahoma State fan. That's all I want to see. I'm just going to watch Oklahoma State. I could care less to watch anybody else. But then you've got this large bucket of people in the middle that watch their team first and foremost, but then they've got a few other teams in their conference that are rivals or within the conference that they like to watch. Let's say they're an Oklahoma fan, but they're going to watch the Texas game. They're going to watch Oklahoma State play, maybe Kansas State and Iowa State. Well, you are eliminating those folks from being able to watch your bowl games when they're all scheduled at the same time. So if you're a Michigan fan and you want to see the Penn State game and the Michigan State game, well, they're being played at the same time as your game. If you're a Georgia fan and the Florida game and the Auburn game is on at the same time as your game, well, you can't watch them play. I always thought that that was idiotic and did not serve college football fan. Okay. Brandon Highmark, do you think Notre Dame has a chance to upset Bama this weekend? Basically, Brandon, because I think that anytime there's a competition on the field and there are guys out there that compete, that have talent and ability and want to win, that yes, that there is some chance of an upset. I can't really figure out a way in my mind that I can really foresee or envision a Notre Dame win over Alabama, but there has to be some chance. I think that the Football Power Index, I think I saw this number today, which I don't put much stock in, but I think it's actually fairly accurate. I think it was a 19% or 16%. I would say that's about the chance that Notre Dame has. They've got about a 15% chance. DB Shashi, what did Mark do at ESPN? Production operations manager. I worked in production operations management. I was there for 19 years. And it was quite the run. You guys are talking about play-by-play voices. Thoughts on Casey Thompson? Hopefully you heard them, Vincent. If not, go back and watch the rest of the video. I gave them a few different times. And thank you, David. You can find Mark on LinkedIn. I haven't done much on LinkedIn. I haven't done anything on LinkedIn in forever, but yes, you can find me there. So please look me up. I will follow back, whomever. You can follow me on Twitter. If anybody's on Twitter that's listening to me, and then certainly follow me on Twitter, MarkRogersTV. Easy to find. And again, folks, consider Patreon. And for those people that are already on Patreon, I know that many of you have voiced your opinion that, hey, Mark, we're just here to be on Patreon just to support you. Could care less what you do here. But there are many others who I need to deliver for, and will be doing that, and have been doing that, but we'll be doing a much better job of that with, again, the insider look that we provide for the Voice of College Football. More on that. And then we will certainly have our picks. We'll continue tomorrow. And so please join me on Patreon. You can find the link in the description section. I should make that a priority every show, to put the link to Patreon here in the live chat. I know you guys are just waiting for me to do that. And then also the Amazon link. I should put the Patreon link and the Amazon link right in the live chat. I should just keep doing that. Ricardo. No, that's not who I'm looking for. Dr. Love. Mark, did you ever go out and party with Chris Berman while at ESPN? No, I did not. Chris Berman, Boomer, did not have the pleasure of partying with me. It's his greatest regret and mistake of his career. That's what I've heard. I think he says that often. So, all right, everyone. Great to see you, Dr. Love and others, here at MarkRogersTV, the Voice of College Football. We will see you tomorrow for Ohio State Buckeyes Live at 2 Eastern. The dog named Brutus, good to see you as well. 2 o'clock Eastern on Wednesday. See you then.